Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. Today we're discussing subcontracting and contract manufacturing, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Andy Sandford, who's the editor of Engineering Capacity. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Jeff. Good to be here. I must say it's a bit strange being asked the questions rather than asking them myself, but I'll see how I get on.
Absolutely. And maybe offline after the recording, you can give me some marks out of 10 on how I've conducted myself. Well, it's great to have you on the show. Well, let's start off with some positive vibes straight off the bat, Andy. What, in your opinion, are some of the biggest opportunities right now for UK subcontract engineering?
It's almost sort of counterintuitive. The opportunities for subcontractors are risk, volatility, difficulties in the market, uncertainty. So if you're going to a skilled manufacturing expert, subcontractor, you don't need to worry about things like, well, I need to invest in this new equipment because he's got it, or she's got it, they've got it. Do I need to take on new staff? No, because they've already got it. Do I have to worry about this new product bit start? No, because they can probably take me through it. I don't need to invest too much of my time risking it when they can de-risk it. So that said, any kind of opportunity for the subcontractor is obviously a problem for someone else. And at the moment we've got things like, well, I don't need to list all the damn things we've got fuel prices, we've got inflation, we've got Ukraine, we've got trying to find new foreign trade markets. I'm sure there's more. Oh, all the usual ones as well, like climate change and plague, pestilence, COVID. So in the last couple of years, I think it's really been almost like there's two parallel universes. Whilst the mainstream manufacturing world has been trying to work out what to do next, they've been thinking, I don't know what to do, I'll go to subcontractors. And subcontractors, by and large, have been doing really well. I mean, not really well, but they've been coping very well. They've been flexible, they've adapted. Okay, they've had to do things like furlough staff, but they've still kept on investing, still kept on serving their customers. And particularly as people realize that those supply chain deficits dealing with people in the Far East, or where freight costs suddenly go through the roof, having someone down on your doorstep you can talk to who's actually on your side, isn't just a supplier, that makes a hell of a lot of difference. So that's one lot of opportunities. The other is, of course, all the new technology that these difficulties are bringing, like sustainability, electric vehicles, new sorts of energy, new medical opportunities. So there's lots of things coming through in terms of light weighting, additive manufacturing, integrated component design, digital manufacturing, automation. They're all coming through, and they're going to feed into building on these advantages for people who go to subcontractors.
Absolutely. So it's sort of, as I often say, glass half full rather than half empty. And would it be a fair comment to say that subcontract manufacturing or engineering, generally these businesses are, I think typically a lot more agile than some of the larger OEMs.
Yeah, they're often family businesses, they're often small businesses. They're sort of towards the lower end of SMEs, quite a lot of them. They've got quite a lot of money tied up in capital equipment, so they've got to make sure it works for them. And it's really very much keeping that spindle turning, making sure that your costs are lower than your incomes, and balancing all that. That's a very clever balancing act to do, and that's how they do it because they're experts at production efficiency. So I think that is the thing. They are nimble, and they could. But I mean, okay, so there are some bigger companies, and they've basically taken that small company ethos and grown it. So there's some very big subcontractors. I mean, you could go as far as saying people like Forge Masters, a subcontractor. But if you talk to a subcontract shop manager, MD, they'll say, well, you never know what the next job is. You can look at the machines, you say they're full this week, I don't know about next week. Some companies, it is really that tight. You don't know what next week's work is.
Yeah.
Yes, they have to be agile.
And that dynamic is just their natural habitat. It's the norm, isn't it? Which does create great opportunity for businesses that are looking to go down the subcontract route.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the current state of the OEM subcontractor relationship these days, Andy. You're well connected. You know, this is your backyard, if you like. You know a lot of these businesses and leaders within subcontract businesses. Has there been a shift towards what I would class as a true partnership approach, or do the SMEs predominantly still get the dirty end of the stick?
Well, they make a profession of taking the dirty end of the stick, but I think certainly things that people don't want to do or can't do. But I think that whole cost down thing is almost proving to be a thing of the past. There's certainly parts of the automotive industry, certainly, where that's still the case. And you've still got quite a lot of big buyers, banks of buyers buying on. They've got a list of things: delivery, cost, quality, and they've got to just tick those boxes. They're not really building relationships. But that's very much on the decline, particularly these past few years where you've become so much more reliant on your subcontractor being a partner. And you want someone that will go the extra mile for you. And if you're talking about bringing new products to market, you don't. Your design engineers in a big OEM, they don't know how to make things. They know how to design things beautifully. And if you haven't got the in-house production engineering skills, well, these companies haven't got anymore, and you're going to outsource these parts, you might find that your part is completely unsuitable.
Yeah.
And if you just go to China and say, can you make 6 million of these? They'll say, sure, the price is this. But if you went to a guy in the West Midlands, you say, well, this is a strange thing to be making. Why have you got 1 micron tolerance on this hole? What's it for? Oh, it's just screw goes through there. Well, do you need 1 micron? No. In fact, do you need the hole? No. Well, you can save yourself 90% of the cost. So these are the sort of questions that people don't actually ask. And can we actually make this part? If it's a sheet metal part, will the bits all fold together in the right order? I mean, is it a sensible thing to be doing? So if you talk to your suppliers, your subcontractors, they know what they're doing. They know how to make things. So they can tell you how to do that. So I think if you've got any sense, your supplier will be a partner. Some companies don't want to do that. They want to keep an arm's length.
Yeah.
But I think it's becoming more and more prevalent that your supplier is a partner. Machine tool sector as well. I mean, the machine tool companies supplying these subcontractors very much want to be partners with them, so they could partner with their customers. And you can get some links around that, so that if a customer is coming in on a new project, the subcontractor will know they've got to invest in new kit. They'll talk to the machine tool supplier, and they'll all get together. They'll work out, well, if you make it this way and you buy this machine, the result for you will be better, and I'll make some money too. So it's really talking to each other that's the key thing.
Yeah. So that classic word collaboration comes in again. It's something that I love talking about, but there's a great example of how it works within manufacturing and engineering. So, and that really brings us on to my next question. Actually, you alluded to some of the low cost country supply. There's a lot of reshoring going on currently, which is great. But it also seems at the same time that there's a rise in outsourcing of certain processes or projects to local subcontract businesses in the UK as well. Yeah. I know we spoke the other week when we first discussed this podcast about Tony Haig and his business PP Control and Automation, who are doing some fantastic work through being an outsourcing partner for UK manufacturers. So what are the advantages for UK manufacturers to outsource to UK-based subcontractors when they may have their own in-house facilities themselves sometimes?
If you've got your in-house facilities, then it may well be that that's your core competence, that's what you're good at doing, and that's what you'll carry on doing. And you'll probably only turn to looking at subcontractors when you've got capacity issues, which is a very valid reason for using a subcontractor. We mustn't forget that magazine engineering capacity dates back to the days when subcontracting was all about extra capacity. If you hadn't got enough machine space, you went somewhere else you had. But that's in the olden times. So that is still a very good reason to outsource to subcontract. But then as technology moves on, I mean, my initial background was in sheet metal manufacturing on the first magazine I edited. And in those days, you go to the big Eurobleck exhibition and you couldn't hear anything because the sound of all the punching machines bashing down. Boom, 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 boom. It's like a cacophonous sound. Yeah. Then about 10 years ago, suddenly there was no sound because everyone was using lasers. And then 5, 6 years ago, all the big old CO2 lasers with their chillers and their the air pumps, they've all gone, and there's little fiber lasers everywhere, cutting all sorts of things very quickly. So I think that if you've got a 10-year-old laser as part of your in-house manufacturing, you're losing money every time you cut something.
Yeah.
So if you can go to a guy who just bought the new latest, I'm not going to mention which suppliers, but the latest fiber laser CNC with integrated software, you're instantly going to be saving energy, saving money, making more, doubling what you can make. Almost, and also being able to do things, cut thicker materials, cut better quality. So if you've got old machinery, even though you maybe have everything you need to make what you want, you might find you can do it better by looking to an outside supplier. And then again, you've got to decide, is it worth investing in my new business? Sorry, is it investing in new kit in my business, particularly in times of uncertainty, when I know there's 5-10 people out there who could do it for me, who've got the kit, and they can run their machine 24 hours a day. They got automation on it. I can run one shift, and the other 2 shifts, it's just capital depreciation going on. So even if you haven't got your own equipment in-house, and even if it is your core competence, you might always be thinking about, well, what's the next step? What's the next step?
Yeah,
you're not
absolutely.
making the same products all the time. So you're going to bring in new products, and they'll maybe need different considerations how you make things. You might be wanting to do different sort of surface coatings. You might want to do different approaches. You might not want to weld them together. You might want to get a 5-axis machining center to cut it out in one piece. Again, you've got to make a decision. Do I make that change to my own production strategy by buying stuff in-house, or do I go to someone else who's already bought the machine, read the manual, know how to use it, is making profit using it, and will share that with me? So again, it's another good reason for going outside the company.
Yeah.
You talk about Tony at PPCNA. They call themselves strategic outsourcing specialists, and although they're a good company, they're not the only one. There's quite a lot of them. It's not a new thing. It's been going on for quite a long time. But talking to someone like Tony, and there's lots of others who, because of NDAs, you can't even talk about, you'll get from experience from the ground up. They'll be making these things or similar things. They know how about integrating the cabinet with the wiring, with the painting, with the outside treatments. They know about project management. So you're not doing it from scratch. You're not trying to go to, oh, I'm going to buy my metal over there. I'll get it cut by this guy here. I'll make it into a closure there. Or I better get the racking sorted out by somebody. Then I'll need to make the harnesses. If you go to an expert who's already doing it, they know lots of things to think of. They'll ask you the question.
And I guess, I mean, over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years during the pandemic, I know we've had the super deduction, which is, hopefully helped lots of businesses, procure capital equipment. I suppose would that be an area as well where, manufacturers would weigh up the long-term costs of having to invest in a piece of plant, as opposed to, outsourcing some of the processes for a new product, for example?
The super deduction has been a great thing. I don't think enough people have taken advantage of it. I think probably more subcontractors and contract manufacturers have taken advantage of it than OEMs.
Yeah,
that's just my own finger in the air feel for it. Because they know where they sense some profit opportunity. They're not driven by the marketing department or whatever, or the ESG policy. So they can buy what they need to make money. There's lots of key reasons to invest at the moment, and all the reasons, all the problems we talked about are reasons to invest. For example, labour is a big problem.
Yeah.
So that's another good reason now to look at investing in automation and digital manufacturing, where I'm afraid to say that UK has rather lagged behind, certainly Germany, the past few years. I mean, just to give an example, I do some freelance writing, again in sheet metal, and I do case studies in Germany. And you go to the case study there, and they've just installed like a fully integrated ERP system linking to the SolidWorks, feeding out into the CAM system, which takes the 3D files, turns them into manufacturing programs, sends them to the machines, plots your production, gives you real-time status, all through a customer portal. They just upload the drawings, and with full automation, etc. So that's a typical story in Germany. Here, oh, I bought a new press brake, I might put a robot on it. Is a good story.
I had Mike Wilson on the podcast a few months ago, talking about the MTC and, where the UK are, versus, a lot of the other industrial nations. We're still way, way, way behind. And, hopefully there will be a continued rise of automation and robotic adoption. But again, in these uncertain times, I guess a lot of businesses are looking at trying to keep cash in the business. So it really is a balancing act, isn't it?
I've been pleasantly surprised how much digital manufacturing and automation, cobots in particular, are being embraced by contract manufacturers.
Yeah.
There's certainly now that it's no great big deal to put a cobot on a lathe. He knows where to look for parts, he knows where to put them afterwards, and you're almost doubling the productivity perhaps. So I think, yes, there's a lot of catching up to do, but there's a lot going on that's can take us. But again, it's not just labour. We talked about availability of labour. There's also, since Brexit, there hasn't really been the same pool of low-cost labour, which, to be honest, we shouldn't have been relying on, but we were relying on. So when that's taken away, you can't suddenly say, well, it's cheaper to get a guy to do it than get a robot to do it or invest in a new machine. No, you've got to make those hard decisions.
Yeah.
I've got to buy some kit that's going to actually use technology rather than a bloke with a forklift. So that's a bit of discipline being brought in. Materials, again, you've got to deal with making sure you can use materials to the best advantage, cutting out scrap. Things like components, like electronics, you've got to be able to build partnerships so you can make sure you get your electronics. So you've got to be looking longer term. You've got to be building partnerships, again, with your automation providers, with your digital manufacturing providers, who are often the same people, who are often the same people, machine tool people. So you've got to be looking at pushing your business forward. I mean, there's various initiatives at the moment which are actually helping to do that. They started off regionally and now moving more nationally. But that's something that's really going to be key, I think, in the future.
Yeah. Who, in your opinion, Andy, are some of the sort of key trailblazers, if you like, in the subcontract engineering or contract manufacturing space that are leading the way in terms of technology?
Well, it's invidious to really single people out in terms of technology, because I think a lot of the people are basically using the technology rather than innovating and using it. So there's lots of good members in the British Turnpike Manufacturers Association, excellent example. There's companies in there, and I won't name too many because I'll don't upset anybody. They're constantly investing in new sliding head machinery. They're constantly investing in robotics. So I suppose people like Qualita and Dawson Precision need a wheel part. I could go on for about half an hour. So those are basically core turn parts machining companies who are, if you like, innovating, but not in a way you can see, innovating by becoming ever more production efficient. So they're being lean, they're making sure they get every possible ounce of juice out of that machine. So that's mainstream. That said, there are people who are going big time on technology. There's a company, I don't know, do you know MRT Castings down in Andover?
Okay, yeah.
They've just built a brand new factory. They've brought new equipment in. They've worked with I think it was the MTC. Anyway, they're working with the catapult bodies to do their digital manufacturing. They've got enhanced robotics. The whole thing's wired, networked. So it's a brand new factory using digital manufacturing. So that's one good example. We talk about people like JJ Churchill. They're doing complex machining on turbine blades using extremely advanced 5-axis machining and building in things like in-process gauging, so that they got a feedback loop from what the metal they're cutting into the 3D model of what they should be making and the quality demands, and they're measuring that as they go, so that they know that part's going to be right when it comes out. What else is there? Things like castings companies, people like Granger and Worrell and say Sargensons, they're actually working with people like Brunel University on developing new alloys so that they can develop new ways of offering their customers lightweight components, particularly in, say, the automotive industry. They're doing cast components that are saving weight, saving energy, and ideal for things like EVs, where you don't want any bits of old waste metal hanging around making you need a bigger battery. So there's lots of stuff going on there. The bigger companies, I think I mentioned Forge Masters before, they're doing things like electron beam welding of massive structures. So you used to saying it was like a high quality thing for smaller things. They can do like pressure vessels. Additive manufacturing, there's loads going on there, new business models. I'm probably going to come and talk about additive later, but there are people innovating in the way they do business, people innovating in the way they use technology, people actually creating new technology.
Additive manufacturing is an interesting one. I did have Professor Kate Black on the show 3 or 4 months ago from the University of Liverpool. I think Kate's also the CTO of Meta Additive, and we were talking about the sort of gap between academia and industry. And there does seem to be a rise in the uptake of additive manufacturing technology. I suppose it's been used a lot in sort of rapid prototyping and low volume and bespoke manufacture. But how big a part do you see AM playing in subcontract volume production in the future? So I think we're a little way off that as the norm at the moment, aren't we?
If you look at basic 3D printing, just to distinguish it from sort of high-end production additive manufacturing, you'll find that most of the machine tool suppliers these days are now offering a 3D printer. I mean, XYZ have got the HP one.
Yeah.
I think Matsura have got a fairly advanced one. Engineering Technology Group have got one. So they're all, and their customers are subcontractors mostly, I would say. So they know that those people are looking in that space, possibly mostly for product development or fast response time on spare parts or production ramp up or legacy parts. So that's one side of it. Then there's the metal additive manufacturing, which is really the proper engineering side of it. Pardon the polymer scientists out there, but I'm a metallurgist originally, so I'm a bit biased. But there you've got lots of good new technology coming through, but it's very expensive, really, to look at making a part out of metal additive manufacturing compared to, say, turning in 5-axis machinery. But there are people in that space. I mean, I looked at some figures. ID TechX predicted the metal additive manufacturing market will hit $18 billion by 2032.
Wow.
That's a hell of a lot of money. I mean, there's one company, Replique, which is not metal, it's plastic. It's spun out of BASF. So they're basically setting up a network globally of manufacturers where you feed your drawings into them, and then their local supplier produces the parts and gets them to you within a couple of days.
Yeah.
That's one model. Then they've got other companies, additive manufacturing metal companies, whereby they are developing new proprietary technology, but rather than try and sell that to customers, bearing in mind they then have to learn how to use new technology, have a massive capital expenditure to get into this advanced technology, have to worry about all the things about sourcing the right powders and all that kind of stuff. So they're developing novel technology, but rather than selling the machines, they are literally selling products made on their machines.
Yeah.
So that's a big change. So that could be the tipping point. I don't know, but there's certainly much more acceptance of additive manufacturing metal parts in things like, say, even aerospace, space, medical.
Yeah.
It's had to go through a lot of qualifying procedures before it got to that stage. But I think that the door is now open. It needs some clever people to work out how to make money out of it.
So we've discussed about we've discussed a number of opportunities. We've discussed different processes, outsourcing to UK subcontractors. Let's just have a quick sort of reflection on some of the the main challenges. Most of us know what they are. They're mountains really for manufacturing and engineering businesses, but also pretty much everybody in the country. Energy, supply chain, skills, inflation, post-Brexit, international trade. They're all having a huge impact. What are you hearing from the businesses you talk to, Andy? I suppose most of the companies will have a similar story when it comes to things like energy, skills, and supply chain. But what else is creating challenges? Let's say within the subcontract sector.
Challenges, which again become opportunities. You talked about inflation. I mean, a year ago the biggest problem was getting material.
Yeah,
now it's paying for it, and the mill prices are going up and up and up. I haven't asked frequently, but things like getting lead times on new equipment was very long because we couldn't get the electronics for them. That was another pitfall, so that was holding back this need to invest. That might have eased a bit now, but then you look at things like energy. A lot of very, very forward-thinking companies have put money into lots of solar power on their roofs. So, I mean, Qualiturn, for example, in Hertfordshire, they can run on a sunny day, they can run a lot of their lathes through the roof. So that's an instant. I mean, I looked at getting that much solar panels at home a year ago, and the payback just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
If I'd done it, I'd be laughing now, but never mind. Maybe next time. And there's other things like that we're worried about inflation, but that also feeds into exchange rates.
Yeah.
At the moment, pound-euro exchange rates are very low against the dollar, and say not just US dollar, Australian dollar, my Middle Eastern markets. So that is an instant export opportunity where UK has got no disadvantage compared to Europe, because so basically parity is the same. So worrying about creating new export markets now is a great time, because you've got low pound. So trying to open new markets in the US is an open door almost. And then things like Ukraine war is dreadful, but that means a lot of people who were not prepared to invest in defence because of their environmental sustainability and governance policies now realise that actually defence is probably quite a necessity. Yeah. So we will put money into aerospace for defence, so that feeds down the chain again. So people need to make parts for BAE Systems, so that's more work for aerospace subcontractors. Pitfalls that aren't surmountable, I don't know. We've just got a new Prime Minister, we've got new government ministers, we don't know what they're going to do yet. I think we'd have to wait and see on that, particularly in terms of relevance to manufacturing industry. I mean, there's a very good campaign going. I know you've been supporting it, Jeff, and Andrea Wilson, to try and persuade government to have a minister for manufacturing, which would be an excellent idea. I mean, I've heard that when Liz Truss was at international trade, she basically she wasn't interested in manufacturing. She was interested in service industries, hospitality, financial services, etc. So whether Kenny Butternock has got more interest in manufacturing, I don't know. But there's certainly scope to develop our international trade policy to encourage manufacturing. And then again, so the BEIS, we haven't got yet whatever under minister is responsible for advanced manufacturing appointed as we speak. So I don't really know what they're going to do. So really wait and see on a lot of things. But more uncertainty, more opportunities for subcontractors.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's been a really interesting discussion about the sector as a whole. So let's move on quickly to engineering capacity. So I've been an avid reader for probably around 12 years now. I mean, I've got a copy here. Actually, great advert on the inside cover about the campaign there, which I was very pleased to see. And what a great publication. I mean, it's from my own personal perspective, I think the mix is spot on. There's some great editorial in there. There's a lot of positive sort of news for subcontract companies, but it also keeps the industry and people like me that supply into engineering and manufacturing, keeps us abreast of what's going on in the sector. And there are a lot of good publications out there, don't get me wrong, but this one, I think it's concise enough that you haven't got too much to trawl through, because we're all really, really, really busy people. But it's just a great publication. I know you've sort of got some sort of partnership or alliance with Kimtech, or you have done recently as well. Do you want to just talk us around what's made engineering capacity such a long-standing success, and what's next?
Well, it's been going 60 years, amazingly enough. Or even more than that, possibly. But it only really became an editorial magazine, as you know. It's just about 30 years ago. It's recent things. But the great thing about it now is evolved. I spoke earlier about how the name engineering capacity came from a time where people had needed extra machines because all their machines were full, so they go to someone else who had spare capacity. It's evolved a long way from that to being all about contract manufacturing. But the great thing advantage I've got over this more focused precision engineering or production engineering magazines, who are all excellent. I won't pick anyone out, but I've got on good terms with all of them. So, but they're focused on selling machine tools and equipment. Well, it's fair enough to say that the people who buy machine tools are also including people who buy subcontract services, but that's not their main focus. That is all they focus on. But the other thing is they're tied to things like either machine parts, sheet metal, or possibly composites, or possibly additive. But I can look at anything that's outsourced, any manufacturing process or service. So whether that's in castings, forgings, plastic moldings, additive manufacturing, electronics, composites, gear making, fabrication services, but even on things like specialist services like surface treatments, all these kind of processes that are really sort of part and parcel of buying in your manufacturing service, but don't really fit into any single process vertical magazine. And the other thing is that because we're speaking to people who are basically in the buying function rather than the technology function or the process or design or whatever, we can talk about it in a fairly straightforward way. People who read the magazine aren't looking to find the cutting edge of understanding how, say, photonics works, which might be fascinating, I'm sure. But they want to know what the laser does. Or more, not what the laser does, but what their supplier can do with the laser they've got. So it's really all at one step removed. You've got to remember, this is all the difficult being an editor, you've got to remember who you're writing for. And I'm writing for the people who are buying these services, not for the people who are offering them, not for the people who are supplying the people who are offering them. So if you sit in that chair thinking, oh dear, what shall I do? I've got to make this machine, I don't know where to start. That's me reading the magazine. And the other thing is, I think it's pretty critical to me, is it is a magazine. It's on paper as well as online. Because the great thing about a magazine like this, as you have in your hand, is that you sit down, you pick it up, you start looking through it. And you don't know what you're going to find interesting till you find it. So I explain to both the readers and the advertisers. For the readers, you're going to find out things you didn't know you needed to know. It's the rubber stamps, it's the unknown unknowns. And so if you're looking for, say, a welded part on Google, you go to Google ads. Oh, they all make welded parts. Where do I start? And you don't know. All you do is you go to the company with the best SEO, which may well not be the best company to make your part.
Yeah.
There's nothing there just to back it up. But also, if you look through the magazine, you might say, oh, additive manufacturing, what's that? Well, you can make a piece in one piece without having to weld two pieces together. Or adhesives, I can use glue instead of welding, or I can make it out of sheet metal or plastic. But you don't know those things if you just go to Google Ads and look at the listings. And the same for the advertisers, the same story really. If someone's reading that magazine, you can tell them something about you. You can put your advert in there. You can give yourself a bit of character, a bit of personality, give them something to think about. Whereas, as I said before, if you're just going to do a Google search, you're just measuring SEO. You're not measuring personality, partnership, sustainability. You might find that out later. But if you can start off by saying, oh, I quite like the sound of these people, let's give them a call. Maybe they can help me. So that's why I think that sort of tactile flees through the pages thing is great. And also you can stick it in your pocket. Go for a cup of coffee, you can take it with you. But that's okay. That's one thing. But also, it's got to be backed up by the news flow. So you don't want to find out in 6 months' time that there's a new prime minister by waiting for the magazine. So you've got to have that news process in place as well, which is where the online thing was. And you mentioned my partnership with Kimtech. Well, that is purely a friendly association. We've got no financial links at all, no ownership links. It works well because what I'm trying to do is putting people who are buying in touch with people who want to supply them, which is exactly what they're doing there.
Yeah.
But they're doing a slightly different way. People are submitting the parts they want to make, and they're doing hand holding and say, well, if you talk to these people, they can make them. They've said they can make them. We're putting you together with them. So we sort of follow that through, put it in practice, that they provide that kind of sourcing, directory-based hand-holding thing, and I provide news. So they give me a forum to put my news stories on, and I subcontract out my design to a great guy called Dave Blake, subcontract out my commercial side of sales thing to a great guy called Arthur Qureshi. I've got a great company called Holbrooks Printers who do the printing for me. But it's all about, you can get on and do it, basically.
Yeah. Another great example of collaboration all the way through. It works wonders. Okay, so if organisations want to contact you about engineering capacity, what's the best way to do that?
Well,
do you want to give away an email address, or
go to the website, wherever it is,
www.engineeringcapacity.com,
or you can email me, and just remember that last bit, editor@engineeringcapacity.com. And it'll get
fantastic.
And if you want to go out and buy an ad without even talking to me, you can do sales at Engineering Capacity.
Brilliant. Well, that pretty much wraps up today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. Thanks very much, Andy. It's always a learning process for me. That's why I love doing this podcast. It's yes, it's for the audience, but it's a great learning opportunity for me as well. So thanks very much. Thank you, the audience, for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.